Alright, folks. Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は106日目です。It is day 106. We're pretty much going to do our lessons today on account of something else. An update later in the day. We did start after midnight. Why these are highlighted. So let's get into our 3 grammar points here. Yoda. Oh. Okay. This was to relate to yesterday's grammar point, right? And yo. Where is yo? I think this is part of the sama, right? Yeah. Sama. So yo, we're using that. And it's like manner, right? It's using the other one, like a manner of a characteristic. So it's that characteristic, so it seems that, yeah, more formal than mitai, which is what we had previously. And alright, na needs a na, and noun needs a no. Okay. In a similar way to mitai, yoda is used when making observations about something in Japanese. This auxiliary verb is used to express 3 primary things. Tatoe, right? An example, tatoe. Using A as an example to highlight that the way that B looks is acting. Okay. Then we have suite. Suite decision, or a guess or inference, using A as a reason for an assumption made about B. Using A as a reason for an assumption made about B. Okay. Trying to compare and contrast these. And then we have presenting example what B is. Reiji, which is an example, which to show or present something, representation. Yoda. Yoda is, or Yoda, don't know yet, is usually based on direct information experience and shows that the speaker has high confidence in what they're saying. It may also frequently appear in its kanji form. Okay, frequently. Yoda can be used with any verb, right? E adjective, na adjective with a na, or noun, a no with a noun. However, it requires na before it when it's used with a non-adjective, or no when it's used with nouns. Okay.
ここに大きなビルができるようだ。
Okay. Alright. So it's example of a big building will be made. Okay. I see.
あそこのプールは深いようだ。
Seems like the pool over there is deep.
彼は明日のテストに自信があるとみんなに言っているが、本当は不安なようだ。
So Okay.
Yoda は宇宙人のようだ。
That's kind of funny. They did a homonym or a play on homonym using Yoda.
ヨーダは宇宙人のようだ。
Oh, it's still Yoda. So this is Yoda, and that's Yoda as well. So that's kind of cheeky. Yoda or Yoda versus Yoda. That's pretty cheeky. Although Yoda and Solda are often used in similar situations, Solda shows that it has like a lot less confidence, right, in her statement, and then Yoda, because of this, Yoda is much better choice when starting things that are obvious or observable, and Mitai is as well, but Mitai is casual, which is what they compared it to with Solda. These are all our recent grammar points. Yoda is considered more formal than Mitai, and is therefore less common in casual conversation. Fair enough. Right here. And we're okay. Good. Yeah, so all of these, it does appear that many of these are covered, right? So their vocab coverage in their grammar stuff is, at least in my opinion, largely have been graded for the N level group, which is wonderful because they write a lot of wonderful sentences that are still graded. Right. All right. So Yoda. All right. Oh yeah. Right. Zen. Right. Zen. Slang, totally, completely exceptional, and then the regular use is not at all. Right. In Japanese, there are several adverbs that are traditionally used exclusively with negative expression containing nai. Zenzen is one of them. When used at the beginning of a nai or masen containing phrase, zenzen has the meaning of completely not or not at all. Yeah.
やばい。トイレットペーパーが全然ない。
全然ない。At the beginning. Okay.
彼女は家事の手伝いを全然しなかったので別れました。
なかったの。川。That's an interesting phrase. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I see the note there. Okay. I have to read all these sentences now with all of these sentences are also graded. I mean, at least it kind of feels like it. They're all graded for their grammar points too at some point. I mean, it's kind of rougher obviously in the beginning in N5 where they only have certain limited grammar, so they still write assuming some of the basic parts. Actually, the grammar is still kept even simpler, but now there are multiple grammar points. There are, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Our new one, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At least 10 grammar points I can see in this one sentence. And they are all within N5 and N4 up to this point. So all of these still exist. So that's pretty nice. Like the whole, all of the sentences outside of the kanji and the vocabulary are graded for their grammar. This is too. At least that's what it seems like. I'm not sure if that's what they intended to write, but it's a very, very nice touch. In writing, it is equally as natural to use either zenzen as kanji or hiragana only, so both forms may be used confidently. Fair enough. Zenzen is more flexible and friendly sounding in casual conversation than zenku. Oh, or not zenku. Which are mataku. Mataku, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more casual than a similar expression which has a formal, often negative nuance. Yeah, kind of like just saying mataku in like mataku.
今月もお金が全然ないからパンだけを食べる。
What the pan? Oh, pan. Oh, that pan だけを食べる。はい。全然ない。Interesting. Excuse me, allergy season. Gonna cough a little bit and clear my throat every once in a while, so I'll try to not utter it into the mic. Nai kara. Okay. This one, maybe not as clear. Not as clear. But it's attached to this. Okay.
昨日後輩からもらったお土産は全く美味しくありませんでしたね。
I see. Okay. Still all within the grammar points. While both of these sentences have the meaning of not at all, not a at all, mataku will give the listener the impression that you are not pleased with the situation. This will depend quite a bit on the tone of voice, though. That's fair. I recently learned about like the difference, how to describe oh no, I already forgotten the term. What is it called? I guess there's a word that I thought this person shared was pretty cool. But we can simply call it sentence stress, right? Someone brought up, in my opinion, pedantically about the contrast between like a stress language and a like a pitch accent language versus a tonal language, but rarely do languages lack stress. The thing is, this particular person was talking about lexical stress, and oftentimes I would say that's a little bit reductive because in Japanese there's also sentence stressing, and that's often referred to, in my opinion, as the tone of voice, which is oftentimes seen as a separate thing from lexical stress, which is when, like, oftentimes English is used as an example of lexical stress, which you have the three things like the length, the pitch, and the duration, right? But actually in sentences, a lot of times there's a bit of tone of voice, or intonation as they would refer to it, in my opinion, and there's sentence stress. Even languages that are seemingly without any lexical stress have sentence stress. And for myself, that's, I guess you could kind of vibe it as an emote. Like when you're emoting a sentence, sentences have sentence stress, and there are examples of that in Japanese, at least in my opinion. Despite originally being used only with negative expression, it is becoming more and more common for zenzen to appear with positive expression as well. Yep, it certainly has. In these cases, it's just the meaning of totally or completely, yeah. Ashita, zenzen ii yo. Yep. Although this is technically not grammatically correct, or, grammatically dealing with formality, it is becoming so frequently used as considered correct by most people, especially the younger generation. Tell me about it. Imagine younger people going around telling you what is grammatically correct English versus what's grammatically formal English. Happens very often. And the answer, in my opinion, or the response that I typically have is appropriateness. Both, right? Know your appropriateness, and I think that will lead you to more options. Okay, zenzen, fine. Oh, kana. Oh, yeah. I was wondering what they were gonna define this as. Kana. Kana. No. Kana. Often sounds like. What are the kids doing these days in English? The trailing ah. That sounds like kana. Oftentimes, or yeah, any form of starting with yeah and then dot dot dot. That's it. Every time I hear this in like Japanese speak, right, when I hear it on a line, my first thought is I don't actually translate it, so to speak. Like, I know they're saying I wonder, but it's more like it's an emote to me. It's at the end of a sentence. It's kind of like aya in the beginning, or like sa, ya, like something like that. So whenever I did never attached it to a formal meaning, it simply gives you a feeling. They're wondering about something. Like, oh, okay. So it often comes as a sound and not anything else. Actually, most of the time, most of the kana stuff at the end and at the beginning are simply sounds that are attached to some form of feeling, as opposed to like some sort of higher construction. Like when someone says like ano, right? Eto. Ana is one of those. And then like all same to like ga, right, ending in a ga, or a wa, or an o. all of them have a sense of contextual feeling, which I imagine that's what some people kind of want to strive for. But this one has often struck me as, well, I don't know what it's translating, but you certainly can vibe the heck out of this one. Ga can, you totally can vibe out ga as well. Anyways, originally a mixture of the sentence ending particle ka, I'm not surprised, and na, yeah, I'm not surprised. Kana evolved over time to become its own singular sentence ending particle, which roughly translates as I wonder if a, or just simply ah, yeah, huh, really, I see, okay, that type of thing. I usually say curious or omoshiroi, interesting. Hello there, crocodile. Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you today? What are you up to today? As it is a sentence ending particle, kana can be added to the end of almost any sentence. However, in the case of non-adjectives, both da and des will usually be omitted. Oh, interesting. That explains why it always feels like there isn't a copula or some sort of like defining ending outside of itself. With kana simply following the word stem itself. Yeah, straight up in the word stem.
あの人が道の真ん中で倒れてるけど、大丈夫かな？
大丈夫かな? Yeah, 大丈夫かな? As opposed to like, 大丈夫ですね. You're well, your eldest has today off, so you're playing Terraria. Oh, that's a solid entry for some gaming together. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right.
このコンロにこの魚が入るかな？
Kondo. The heck is a kondo? Oh, stove. Combining the meaning ka and na, we can see where kana gets is actually
このコンロにこの魚が入るかな？
yep. Get is original meaning. Ka presents a question, usually to another person, while not sometimes shows that a sentence is related purely to the speaker's own thoughts, opinions. In this way, kana expresses that the speaker's own thoughts are being questioned. In the past, kana was thought of as being a fairly feminine way to express I wonder, and males tended to use phrases like yep, daro ka, to express the same type of statement. However, in modern day Japanese, kana is used by both men and women equally, considering that it's a bit softer. Kana is feels and seems softer than daro ka. Or just straight up daro with confidence, I suppose, in confirmation. Kono, let's see, kono tsu, tsucho. I don't think I have cho yet. Chucho checkbook. Okay, coming from finances. I see. And then this is account, but I don't have this. Chucho wa okasan 母さんのだろうか。OK。あの人は本当に、Oh, Ben? Oh, yeah, that's Ben. Ben, 弁護士なのかな? Lawyer, 弁護士. Alright. There are other wonders. There are 3 other wonders. There are 2 other wonders in N4. We'll cover them as they relate retroactively. Alright. So we got Kana, Zenzen, and Yoda. Alright. Let's go. High confidence. And oh, they don't separate from casual versus polite. So it'll be, I wonder what happens if you put mitai here. How about grammar point that's a bit more polite? Okay, so they'll specify the polite after the fact. Oops.
ほとんどなくなっているようだ。
ほとんどなくなっているようだ。Okay. 着物が全然居合はない。似合いはない。Oh, right. E is, I'm misreading this. E is here. 似合いはない。似合いはない。
着物が全然似合わない。
似合わない。似合わない。Wait, 似合わない。
着物が全然似合わない。
もうすぐ食べに行くかな。
もうすぐ食べに行くかな。
Or higher. Yeah, this is what I mean by a bit of ending flexibility. Anyways. Okay. Let's go to our vocabulary. Quick and sort of quick. This is 実は as a matter of fact, by the way, ooh, I kind of like that. And no, it uses the onyomi. Okay. We got he and jo. Hijoni. Also double onyomi. Hijoni is just very frequent or exceedingly just high in intensity and frequency. Sakura. Gotta get used to that character. Sure. We're into Japanese culture. Toryo. Colleague. Oh, okay. Ryo is usually kind of generically as some form of companion, or actually no. Did they assign to or Ryo a colleague? Okay. Companion, associate in a company, person. Ryo. Okay. Suido is it's a road. This is like a path and water, but water services. A water street. Suido. Kenisu. Self-explanatory. Nikai tate. Date. Because of Probably rendaku. 2階建て. 2階建て. And then you can obviously change the number of the stories, showing you a compound for like a compound phrase. Ish. Mansion. Mansion was what I was thinking about with sho, but in Wanikani, like just apartment or any form of like condominium, flats, loft, etc. Choose would be erabu. Okay. In that case, that's to choose. Wrap, tsutsumu. Tsutsumu. That was recent. Wrap is pretty well. It's a very specific character. So we'll be fine with that one. This one, not dame. Like no good, but it's double kun. Oh, is that? Hold up. I don't think we reached it yet. I'm pretty sure we haven't. No. Burdensome. Dame. Alright. We're gonna feel this one out for dame. I think I'm okay. It appears that da is in it, so could do something like we have fat horse. And then you just have to link it with da. So a fat horse and da, that's not too bad. Yogoreru. Get dirty. I think we got yogoru to like intransitively get dirt, or transitively dirty something. This is intransitive. Oh, you know what? That's kind of interesting. It's the second subgroup. So whenever you have, if you're like trying to do an action, but it deals with becoming something, it kind of feels reverse. So redu, there's a chance sometimes it's either transitive or intransitive, depending on this. It's like the second group. You kind of just feel it out, I suppose. Machigaeru. To make a mistake. Machigaeru. Transitive. Tsuru, the fish. Transitive. Sleep. Nemuru. Nemuru. This is intransitive. These ones are a little bit cryptic because it's a mu here. Mu's tend to be intransitive. Steel. Nesumu. That's new. We have tall, but I don't think I have Nesumu. Yeah, no. Oh no, I do. Mesumu. Where did this go? Oh wait, not. Oh no, Nusu. Sorry, not Mesu. Nusu. Oh, the noose. Ooh, Nusumu. I don't remember noose at all. Nusu. Oh no. So tall. What is that? Next plate? Okay. Alright. Nisu is... Yikes. It's probably the weakest one. Kiru... no. Inoru. This is key though. Inoru is fine. Prey is very special. Actually, I'm not even sure if there's any other I can think of off the top of my head. Nope. Annani. This is interesting. Because we got Sonnani, I think. Yeah, this is just a compliment to the extent, but from both speakers. The speaker and the listener. Shido is fine. Shido is fine. And Sangyo. Yeah, that's product and business. Livelihood. Alright, so there's two questionable ones. Two-ish questionable ones. Okay, jitsuwa. An expression used to introduce a fact or information not previously mentioned. Yeah, fair enough. An adverb used to emphasize the degree or intensity of something. Okay, and then it was using high. Okay. A type of flowering tree known for its beautiful pink and white blossoms, famous primarily in Japan. Sakura. I mean, primarily in Japan? Suppose. A person who works in the same organization or company as you. So you have do. The system of pipes, tanks, and infrastructure used to provide water to buildings and homes. Oh yeah. So a sports played with a racket and a yellow ball, often enjoyed in singles or doubles matches. A noun describing a building or structure with 2 floors or levels, right? Okay. Lots of these characters are pretty solid. A non-Japanese term for a large building containing multiple individual living units or apartments. Okay. A verb meaning to make a decision by picking one option from among several. The action of covering or enclosing something with materials such as paper or cloth. An adjective indicating that something is not acceptable or cannot be done. So this one's one of the questionable ones, but I think we're okay with Da, our new character Da. Da is actually a new character. A verb indicating that something becomes unclean or stained. So use. A common verb that means to commit an error or to do something incorrectly, right? Okay. A verb indicating the activity of catching fish, often using a fishing rod and bait. The action of resting with one's eyes closed and being in a state of rest. Okay. A verb indicating the act of taking someone else's property or possession without permission. And then it's a verb that highlights the act of communicating with a higher power or deity through supplication or petition. Petition. Okay, I see. Supplication. That's interesting. Okay. An adverbial phrase used to indicate the extent of something that is either a mutually shared memory or something away from both. Or something away from both the speaker and listener. Interesting. Wait, grammar points incoming, I suppose. In before grammar point. Operating or functioning independently without human intervention. Right. Okay. A category of economic activity related to the production of goods or services, often used in relation to one's chosen field. Right. That product. Good. Go. Okay. All right. Actually, oh, wrong particle.
あの時話した話、実は嘘だったんだ。
Wait, I thought it was, oh. Oh.
真実を知り非常にショックを受けました。
桜を見に家族で公園へ行く。
彼とは3年前まで同僚でした。
この国の水道の水は飲めますか？
後で一緒にテニスをしましょう。
新しい2階建てのアパートに引っ越す引っ越しをする。Oh, right, move.
あなたが住んでいるマンションはどこにあるの？
僕はショートケーキを選んだ。彼女もショートケーキを選んだ。
Fair enough. Tenin, テニン。こちらはプレゼント用に包みましたか？包みましたか？しますか？しますか？ I added an extra syllable. I was like, what is happening? And not. How does that work? Oh, okay.
人に暴力を振るのはダメです。
Actually, I'm not sure what oil is. Oh, abura. Okay. Like abura an oil painting. だって服が汚れる。
油で服が汚れる。
答え間違える。
答えを間違える。
川で鮭を2匹釣りました。
Oh, sounded like the gawa.
昨日はぐっすり眠れた？
ぐっすり well ぐっすり眠れた。What? Oh, I keep typing.
近所のコンビニで漫画を盗む。
健康を祈る。
Interesting. Okay. All right. I got you.
あんなに勉強したのに。
自動的にアプリがアップデートされる。
アプリ Oh, that's interesting. アプリがwait, say that again?
自動的にアプリがアップデートされる。
アップデート
産業について勉強する。
All right. So we're keeping with the groove. Moving along today. Gonna try to get stuff done and gonna start tomorrow. A little fresher, right? All right, folks. That's our wrap for our Bunpro session. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. As always, feel free to follow along. Pick up Bunpro for yourself. Give it a go. You're always welcome to come on by and yap and discuss things. I probably some things that might come up in future discussion is the idea is like, oh, but you're not doing your reviews, and how are you gonna catch up? How are you gonna remember this stuff? Something I do in the evening that occurs very often that is not related to SRS, which I've talked about this quite a bit as a personal share. When I learn something, I typically try to find a opportunity to immediately apply or discuss or think about those things. So during the evening when I'm no longer streaming, that doesn't mean I'm not practicing or reviewing these things. So I do want to make that clear every once in a while that I don't tune this stuff out. Like, they're not segregated. So whenever I feel I'm talking to someone, they feel like they have to force themselves to review. To remember things for myself, I apply them. And when I apply them, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm applying them as I'm learning them. So when I immerse, I am outputting the stuff by applying it, not necessarily trying to find new sources of input. So oftentimes this can feel scary, like, oh no, what if I forgot the 60 grammar points are piling up because my SRS is not telling me what the lesson has already taught me. That's not really the case for myself. And I've made this quite clear that the truth, in my opinion, the most reliable piece of consistency in my life is when I learn something, I try to find as immediate application or a tether to an existing memory that I have. So talking about it, like, I do this while I'm literally learning something. When I'm learning something, I'm not learning it by reading what it's exactly and only what it's trying to tell me. I have plenty of foundations in so many things that when I'm reading a lesson, it's not taking it one-to-one. It's rarely taking it one-to-one. It's taking it like 6-to-1. I read something, I process it, I try to comprehend it, and I contextualize it myself. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, how abstract the concept is. When after you get old enough, like with enough experience, if you're not like living under a bunker or bootstrapping through the same limited skills, it's rarely you ever read something in a void. Like when someone's trying to teach me a concept, it's not like I turn off my brain and say, oh yeah, this is the first time I've ever heard this. Okay, so we're just gonna write this down and try to understand fundamentals. And some people might think of learning another language as another fundamental. That's true if the last language you learned actively in that specific way was like 30 years ago, which is your first language. I haven't really stopped learning English and contextualizing English. So this type of bootstrapping and stuff is not outside of my purview still. Do I ever go back and watch past streams? Not for this type of thing. I go back to watch when someone points something out. So the only time I go back and watch my past stream is when there is a point being raised. So when someone's like alluding to a past stream or alluding to something, or I have to recall something that deals with something that happened in the past. So those are the stuff that I would review. I need an application to go back. Otherwise, I'm consistently moving forward while attaching things to the past. So the things I remember really well from past streams are because they're brought forward. And then when it comes to learning, everything gets consolidated and comprehended on the spot. If I'm absolutely way out of my depth, then we would do something else. But I haven't really done anything like that in a while. So it would be kind of an interesting experiment, like doing something way out of my depth. Maybe something like learning quantum mechanics or something, because I genuinely do not have strong foundations anymore in physics. Even to get to there, I would need to rehearse and do everything as though it is new. because I don't have strong tethers. Like basic foundational physics occasionally gets tied to the explanation of molecular dynamics on the molecular level, right? Like molecular biology. And that's as cursory as we get to physics. So if you elevate to like quantum mechanics, I can't even begin to know anything other than saying the word quantum mechanics, which is how I feel that the majority of people who learn on the internet for the first time, right? For the first time, or when they're young, the vast, dominant, and majority of their information is that whatever they learn first will form the foundation on which everything is built upon. So imagine the error rate or the spuriousness if a child, right, grows up and their first foundational representative happens to be some guru that is talking about 30 or 40 years of experience, but they truncate it into a 1 year duration. And then the child forms the foundation that you can acquire 30 or 40 years of reductive, simplistic, simplistic product. And that is the basis of everything they form. I say this as a very specific example because that is one of the root causes, not malicious, but more like inappropriate interaction, possibly, when a child develops the perspective that things happen very rapidly. And in my opinion, is a little bit of a mixed bag because the products that people are selling, like your masterclass for to master communication in 6 months, that is possible, but it's directed towards a very specific audience. And when you're selling something, there aren't any like rules or laws yet, right? That regulates how these things are advertised to people. Like, for example, they can target anyone they want. You can serve ads to pretty much anyone for the moment. There's no negligence, no clause of protection for anyone selling stuff. So they don't necessarily have the legal consequences of serving ads to the most reliable payout. And that's not because the product is selling something fake. Like if you're like a 30-year-old, 40-year-old expert, right? You spent 20 years cultivating something. Your product is really geared towards considering who the most efficacious maybe business target versus most efficacious for your success. So it is up to the responsibility of the seller to target either for business practices or reliability in their product, right? They go hand in hand. Your business goes down if the reliability of your product goes down. So it's the tolerance of the reliability of the product, so the people you're targeting and their success, in exchange for how easily targetable the target is. So when you market well, it works well, and it's often a win-win. But there are things that are not foreseen because kids and other people, they get to choose, right? Their choices. But there's no fine print for things like learning apps. Oftentimes, learning apps and like skill building and stuff, there aren't red tapes for, hey guys, adult discretion is advised, but I'm gonna show how I learned to do a backflip. Meanwhile, there's no disclaimer, right? A lot of these things have disclaimers like, oh yeah, make sure to take the necessary steps, have adult supervision, right? Seek a gymnast. Like there are a lot of things that there aren't any laws or moderations to provide a foundation or structure for what they target. And I think these are very similar. Like you can kind of say that we live, at least in my opinion, in a society where if the intent is pure, one is often exonerated of negligence. But in my opinion, sometimes the wound kind of cuts deep. So when you're doing something like this and you fail, what is the cost of that? I was talking to someone yesterday and they were asking about like Wanikani and is it a great place to start? And someone else coincidentally was there who said, yeah, it's recommended if you're interested in kanji. And I'm like, let's expand upon that a little bit. So in my opinion, it was interesting. It was interesting to ask the person what type of behavioral pattern they have, because you could spend a year on Wanikani, spend the money, and then come out feeling regretful, right? Because of what I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think people, the developers of Bunpro and Wanikani, have to be held like very vigorously accountable, because they are trying to encourage learning, right? Education. However, it takes supervision, like an adult, a guidance. That's why teachers exist. And then there's feedback from other people, right? Other people who are ahead of you or more experienced to provide guidance. But when someone comes around and just says, oh yeah, this is good, like I would recommend it, and then they didn't ask anything about the person they're talking to, that's what I mean by someone who sells a product that projects what sometimes they don't have time for these things. You can't account for all these variabilities, but you can project like, hey, my product works because I'm the success story. Fair enough. The other thing is, though, because we know that exists, anyone who's impressionable can be served a ad for a specific skill, and it's based on statistics, right? Like, if a product is very popular, that means a lot of people buy it and it's very successful. That's fair. It doesn't take into account, so what happens with the minority a lot of times, like these products, like maybe they have a 15% fail ratio, and then you're one of the 15%, and then your thought is, okay, well, this is the first time I've ever learned a language. I use this product and I failed where 90% of other people succeeded. This is one of the tough things about formal education. You're trying to find a structure that fits a large audience or a larger audience, because you're accounting for nearly everyone who has to go through the structure. So most of these things are not regulated, like, and for better or for worse, because I'm not suggesting they should be regulated, because there are pros and cons to regulation as well, and it can cost developers and it can reduce the amount of tools. But because we have to keep in mind, the vast amount of tools also means that the area is unregulated. So if you're expecting consistency in the way you learn and whatnot, that is at the expense of a higher standard. If things did in fact have incredibly high standards, there wouldn't be a lot of it that creates spuriousness. In this case, I wanted to make sure to relate back to the topic of all of this, right? I do other things. I do a lot of other things that would leverage my experience, not ride the ride. In the beginning, like the first month or two, I try to see what it's like if I specifically relied on Bunpro. Just everything, reading one for one, right? Because I kind of want to get close to how people imagine, or how I think other people imagine these products work. I think the large majority of the developers is a give and take. Developers want to target, like, a nice thing about tools is if you target a audience that is interested and it's a good fit for your product, they would inherently already have the experiences and whatnot to also elevate your product. You think that Don't Do This at Home does some heavy lifting? Yeah. Like for example, when someone says, hey, should I go and grind Bunpro? Viewer just, discretion is advised. Like, what is your learning background? In my opinion, right? Are you a child learning for the first time, which can happen? And what I mean by child, I mean someone who's young and inexperienced, not someone who is literally young, like 13, 14, but as you're getting younger, you're less and less likely to have the experience. So it's often you start, and there are some products out there that actually does this. So and Bunpro kind of does this. Smaller products don't necessarily use dynamic like tuning, because their product is very focused and it costs a lot of money to try to like tweak it so that it dynamically fits more like a niche thing, right? Personalization, like fitness programs, fitness apps now has gotten to a point where, because of the way like statistical mapping can work with like AI, right? AI uses statistical mapping. Like, you convert things into a matrix, and then the matrix will create the likelihood of coherence and coincidences for the behavior. So nowadays, fitness apps, unlike language learning apps for the time being, what they tend to do, SRS is a close like a dynamics. It's related to the dynamics of frequency for memory retention. Fitness apps tend to be like, when you subscribe into it, what they do is they try to add levels of automated personalization, which then can increase the potential that, you know, someone else who picks up the app, they're like, oh yeah, based on all your preferences and your stuff, here's a 1-year program. Meanwhile, another person gets it and it's like, okay, based on your preferences and behavior, here's a 4-year program. And then the product that's being advertised would be said like, oh, we've customized something that dynamically tries to take into consideration the human variation in experience. That's a new thing now, but well, it's not the newest thing. It's an old concept, but with the new computational power, that's a wonderful way to talk about how AI could be applied in a manner that can be appropriate, right? Because it's very difficult to hire like a personal trainer to keep track of, obviously, this is not tackling the whole data privacy and all that stuff. That's a different topic for another day. But these tools do not have those things, right, at the moment. So whenever someone asks me do I recommend this and recommend that, we would need at least 30 minutes to allow me to ask even the basic questions that, in my opinion, when someone's asking advice, they're also sharing something, which doesn't happen anymore. For example, like you go to a car dealership, right? And then if you stood there and let the car dealer lead all of the advertising and all the explanation, then they can convince you to buy anything. If you don't have a clear idea, right? You don't have any previous experiences, wants, needs going into it. So that is kind of how I feel about internet conversation right now. They ask you blanketed things without voluntarily asking what they're looking for, what they're doing. So oftentimes I would follow up. I would ask them, so what have you done previously? Okay, may I ask how you qualify what's considered casual, what type of input you have? Do you have any particular lifestyle choices that can interfere with making time? So the thing I typically highlight about SRS is you need to make time for SRS. SRS is designed, like Bunpro and Wanikani, is designed to create a new habit. So if you're looking at your lifestyle schedule right now and you're saying, oh, I stopped learning the previous language, which is what happened to the previous person that I was talking to yesterday. They used to learn Korean Well, they thought they were interested in Korean, and then there wasn't enough form of casual input practice to boost their motivation for Korean. But they like anime and like Japanese anime, so not manga, right? And they said that might help them develop consistency for Japanese. Well, if casual input is the example of why they decide to start up Japanese, Bunpro and Wanikani would be ill-fitted for that, because they've already stated that if it is not the boon to their enthusiasm is that they can do something they like and learn something along the way. Wanikani and Bunpro requires that you create a new habit in your schedule. So it is considered not casual to this person. It is hardcore. You have to lift and break up your schedule to accommodate Bunpro and Wanikani until it becomes a part of your life schedule, which can be tough because that's the deal breaker for SRS. The whole idea is to keep you consistently doing something that actually isn't a casual part of many people's lifestyles. So, and it works really well if you're not a busy person doing something else. So that was my main comment to that person. Like, and you can try it out. So you can temporarily try it out for the first 100 characters and see how your schedule fits. Because Wanikani's success, in my opinion, and Bunpro's success is dependent on if the person they're selling it to, right, like their product is reaching the hands of someone. Those people have very strong one thing in common. They will make time for the SRS regardless. They have a trust in the system that they would follow through the end. The success stories that will really be helpful to Bunpro's developers and Wanikani's developer is that people have to understand it's not a form of casual input. It's a hardcore, bootstrapped, grindy thing to immediately try to grind a new pattern into your lifestyle. And if you're halfway there, like, you know, you start like a month in and you spent like 3 months subscription and you look back and say, I can't maintain this anymore, then most of that Wanikani and Bunpro stuff is probably going to fade. And it's going to feel like it's a past chapter in your life, which to me, I know I could be involuntarily, like unintentionally taking maybe business away from Wanikani or Bunpro, but honestly, I would prefer to be responsible for putting two things suitable like Wanikani and Bunpro together with their intended target audience, because I think developers prefer to be selling to appropriate people so that the success of their product is more consistent. The perception of their quality of their product is more accurate. And obviously these are still small devs. Tofuku and Bunpro's operation is relatively small. The idea is to small operations, optics is the most important, and they don't have money for marketing strategies and whatnot. So having people be able to do that, at least in my opinion, that would be something that I am more willing to place my professional integrity on, which is the idea that you want to be selling a product or you suggesting a product by explaining to the best of your ability if the product is appropriate for a person. I understand this sounds like, wait, why are you making such a big deal? Because it's important to me. I like when I understand a product and the design functions that it has that is suitable for someone. And you can always ask that person, say, do you want to try something crazy? Like something way out of the box, out of your comfort zone? Because it sounds like you're really in your comfort zone. You need a high comfort zone in order to start something. Give it a try. And that's the end. That's how the developers have a free trial period, right? And often I would say something like, all right, the first 100 characters, it will give you like a month's period to figure out if it's sustainable, because before you start committing to something, it can feel really terrifying. If this is your first experience with like a technique or something, it can transform your perspective or even carry forever. And kids are far more impressionable. So I'm not, that person is striking me as a much older person. So I don't know. You like Nihongo Shark saying very early on in their lessons to get a tutor for speaking practice. Yeah, to reveal a lot of the things. They didn't offer the service through them and didn't say what site or program. They just wanted to speak. Yeah, exactly. So I think it does cost money, and it does cost developer money, right? And it's up to the developers' due diligence whether they want to risk a larger audience or narrow audience. For myself, if I like a product and I like using it, I'm not gonna say what it doesn't do and say what it does do in the hopes that somehow is dependent on the user to compensate for the product. So instead, it's a lot more regular for me to, because I can do it. I'm not developing Bunpro, right? I'm using Bunpro. So I'm taking the consumer perspective. How the developers take, if they even see any of this, take that for perspective is up to them. For myself, I think the most I do not want to also be a reason for professional negligence. I'm not selling a product. I'm technically offering advice when prompt, and an advice is the lifeblood of my professional integrity. So I wouldn't simply blanketed statement rely on some sort of predictive algorithm or some statistical not objective metric when I'm talking to someone, because there is a subjectivity and a limitation of their experience or an expansion of their experience. In fact, when someone says something like, oh yeah, I've used 4 SRS systems in my past life, Wanikani and Bunpro is probably not for you. You're probably going to find it arguably a detraction because it feels like you're doing the same thing. So, right, knowing more and knowing less, there's appropriateness for those things. And that's what I would want to say here. Like, I understand that, back to my original point, I understand that some people might look at this and they're like, oh, his Bunpro thing might not end up going the way he thinks because he's not actively using the SRS system. I said this before about like Duolingo's non-SRS system, which is like Lecture Bound versus Wanikani, Hanzahiro, and Bunpro. I don't particularly use SRS systems anymore. My SRS system is on most of the time. Like, just because I don't have something literally prompting me to remember grammar points and vocabulary doesn't mean I'm like in the evening playing video games or something and I'm like, huh, maybe I should go over in my head what I remember from today's lesson. I do that a lot because every evening I have to reflect upon what I did for the day. And then every so often, every week or two, I reflect. Every month or two, I reflect. And every year, I reflect. So these things, the reason why sometimes accuracy is higher and like maybe your mileage might vary, doing what I'm doing, this is only part of the picture. I'm doing this part to demonstrate how I interact with it, and then making disclaimers, because in the evening there's still like 8 hours of my day, and I don't sit there and compartmentalize things. Like I don't turn my brain off to Japanese all of a sudden because something's not telling me to do it. I think that is something that someone who choose to do something that they don't really care about or know about, like, this is very direct. If you're choosing to turn your brain off to something that you're working on, then that is no longer a life skill. It is a job. If you're talking about, like, I ask this question oftentimes, but I rarely reveal what my intent was. Whenever I ask, like, oh, so why are you doing Japanese? Like, why are you learning Japanese? And then someone would say, oh, it's purely a hobby. Okay. My mindset is that if it's purely a hobby, then they would have pleasure from doing it, overall pleasure and like reward from doing it. So the next thing that comes out of their mouth should be, if I ask them like, oh, so how are you using your Japanese now? It would be something of pleasure, something that is integrated into their life that they do on a regular basis because it's a hobby. That's kind of a mixed bag, because the ones that are guaranteed to respond, nearly guaranteed to respond, that they finished Wanikani. They did all of the Bunpro exercises because it has become a part of their life. That's truly a hobby. Now, when someone's starting, that's a different story because they have to anticipate that it becomes a part of their life. And when you hear their past history with language, it sounds like they're looking for something that will become part of their life. And SRS is a big demand. It's a really big demand immediately. I think learning what you're interested in and finding things that you can see that you can do for a while, and then have SRS be an application of it, can create a new hobby or a new habit, which habits can be hobbies, right? So when someone says, oh, should I start with Wanikani? It could end your hobby right there. And personally, I don't think the Tofuku and the Bunpro would really like the idea that, oh man, all these people are starting and the vast majority of them are quitting and then leaving a sour taste and a poor impression of their product, right? So that's kind of the trade-off. It would be great to know that, oh, this person, they already look at Japanese in a way that happens every day, and then they always wonder, oh, I wonder what these characters mean. Try Wanikani out, because then there's a natural fit to create a habit. And one of the most important things about lifelong things is habit formation. And one of the, in my opinion, increasingly consistent way to introduce a new habit is to often couple it with an existing habit. An existing habit that is positive. So if someone is saying, oh, I recently acquired a new habit, like a new habit, and now I want to attach it, and you're asking me, is it recommended to attach a new habit to another new habit? Possibly. Or is it an old habit, as in they already do it? It's possible. Like, usually you want old habits, and usually positive ones. However, this person is unclear if it's a new or an old habit because the person introduced a parallel habit with Korean that didn't pan out. So it's a bit of a 50-50. They would have to fill it out. When you're stacking, compound stacking new habits, the odds of that being successful will lead to exhaustion. Like it typically fails in exhaustion. That's like starting a new diet and experts telling you, oh yeah, that's okay, just start a crash diet and then suck it up and you'll get it through. The success rate is so low. Wonderful like fitness people out there who gears nutrition, and they talk about how to do something temporarily but also make it and transitioning it into something long lasting, and it requires a structure, right? A really heavy structure. Alternatively, they can slowly make modifications adapting the existing habits. And I think one of the largest failure rates, at least in my opinion, one of the underlying consequences is people adopt like 3 habits on average when they start language learning. And all 3 of these habits are novel habits. Not like, oh, I have a habit D and a habit E that is somehow related to all these habits. So these habits complement and these habits provide application. And then I just want to wrap up this part. What are my habits D and E? I stream. So I have to think about what I'm doing, at least in my opinion. The habit of streaming requires that I review what I'm doing and where I'm going every single day, at least in my opinion. Or maybe like once a week, we would plan on a weekend or something like that. And then what's E? I like learning process. So these habits are already attached to this. I've been doing this for a very long time. So these form the foundations. So regardless of how rigorous Wanikani is or Bunpro is, they are not stronger. They are not strong enough to inhibit my existing habits. My existing habits are so strong that no matter how strong this gets, it is unlikely to break, which is what makes habit coupling very powerful, right? If you like broccoli, for example, let's use something a little bit more realistic. If you like, say, running, right? And you understand that eating broccoli, that this is not a real example, just to tell you about habit coupling. If you like running and you like running, like whatever element of running, the air blowing around, getting to be outside, whatever it is, if this is established already for like 5 years, you have a solid routine, and then you simply add a routine of eating broccoli near it, like afterwards or before, the strength of this habit will trigger this one. And that is a synergistic. There's also destructive. You can take a good habit and try to replace it with a bad habit. That's a different story. It's a lot tougher. This one is synergistic. So language learning can be built using synergistic habit pretty much regularly. However, like I was alluding to, when people talk about their reviews and their vocabulary and whatnot, it strikes me that the vast majority of people compartmentalize. They compartmentalize. So when they're on Wanikani, they're studying Japanese. When they're watching their anime, they're no longer using Japanese. Right? When you're playing a Japanese video game and you're looking at it, it's like, well, your brain is already turned off because your study time is different from your learning time, and your practice time is different. That's what happens when a habit is decoupled from each other. And that can still work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. The odds of it working goes dramatically down if they're not associated with each other. For me, as a final emphasis to beat it over a dead horse, it is natural for me. It is almost obligatory for me to think about what I learned for the day. Whether I do this amount of things, I'm already reviewing it like 4 times a day. Or more. Like, I'm already doing way more than what this SRS is doing. That's why Wanikani gets faster over time. Whenever the most recent unit, right? Whenever I got the most recent unit, it takes a fraction of the time after the first day. Because it's not like I stopped thinking about it. After I close Wanikani, I find ways to use it. It's part of my habit. So most of the stuff that I learn, I'm interested in the process. right? And then the process requires that I think about it for every stream. And then every stream requires me to do something, like create a story, this very digression. I prepare a digression, like a comment, nearly every single day. That is the strongest part of the habit. And using Bunpro is the new thing. But Bunpro, no matter what I do with Bunpro, I have to do all my old things. So when I do my old things, I get to Bunpro. That's kind of the idea. Your strongest foundations are your habits that exist. And if you are able to use them to motivate yourself, and that's where the motivation is, you can attach a new habit to it. And that's also, by the way, having a bad habit and putting it next to a good habit can often give you the opportunity to either replace the bad habit, displace it, or alter it. That's another method of trying to like tweak something. Like if you're always making a mistake, this is my last point that I've been making over the past week with Mika, is that when you make a mistake, you might consider that as a one-off, or you repeat it so often that you become good or efficient. Don't use the word good because I don't really like the word good in this game. You become more efficient at making this mistake as bad if it's detached from your quote-unquote good habit. And what is that good habit that I typically use to my advantage? I like solving problems. So anytime a mistake comes out, it triggers my good habit, the habit that I had for years, over 30 years. So I learn from my mistakes because it triggers a habit of problem solving. The person that I've been talking to for a while, their trigger is that this is a bad habit, and it triggers avoidance. So their natural habit that they practice really well is to circumvent the problem. How do you circumvent a mistake? By finding the correct answer. So if you become really, really good at finding the correct answer and avoiding how you made the how you made the mistake in the first place, this mistake continues to exist. It doesn't displace this. This doesn't antagonistically displace it. Constantly knowing how to quickly find the right answer does not solve mistakes. It does not address the nature of the mistake. It gets you better at ignoring the mistake and the nature of the mistake because you no longer have to do it. So yes, you can be incredibly successful by always knowing what the right thing is, but you will be poor at fixing old things or, improving on bad things, turning bad things into good things. Those are the things you don't practice. You don't do those things habitually. You can use the act of looking for a correct answer and attach it to a new habit of trying to comprehend the answer. And that's usually the technique I would use. When someone is so avoidant and they constantly circumvent to get the correct answer, you can attach this habit, which is established now. It's a good habit, right? It's good to always know how to find the correct answer and know the correct answer. That is a desirable habit. It's sustainable. So now, since they do this really often, it's time to attach a new habit to it. So the new habit is constantly ask them about, what does the correct answer tell you? What did you learn from the correct answer? And then at some point when they look for correct answers in order to comprehend the correct answer, you can then try to use it to displace the mistakes, the habit of avoiding mistakes and addressing mistakes down the road. Because then this will enable a relationship with analyzing mistakes. So then mistakes will no longer be something bad to avoid, it would be something to understand because they're looking for the correct answer. So they need to comprehend the mistake in order to look for the correct answer. And that is usually a much less resistant way of getting eventually, not everyone, but most people to come back around. So yes, you can still continue to avoid and develop that bad habit of making mistakes and it will feel bad, but at least they have the motivation to look for correct answers and slowly build another habit, eventually coming back to the mistake. This, I'm not describing just people I'm talking about now. This was me when I was a teenager. When I was younger, this was my cycle. You make a mistake, you immediately get told or you find out what the correct answer is, and that's it. You do that, mistake, find correct answer. Mistake, find correct answer, because you have no basis yet for comprehension, right? We have to understand that when you are younger, right, you lack experience to create comprehension. So you do this, that's the quote-unquote bane and double edge of formal education, right? Until you form enough foundations, there's no basis for comprehension yet. And then eventually, with enough correct answers, you can slowly develop a habit of comprehension, which I already mentioned 3 days ago. It was in college when I got slapped in the face for not comprehending the things that I know to be correct. You can know things to be correct without comprehending any of it, right? And then the rest is history, because through the years of college and graduate school, I've come to realize that I don't only have to leverage my comprehension for the correct answer. I can leverage my comprehension for nearly every aspect of my life. When someone says, aren't you worried you're going to develop a bad habit? No, it's a problem to comprehend and solve. But what's the point? You could avoid making that bad habit altogether. The point is, you will never get better at solving problems and critically thinking or learning to approach the unknown, the concerns and the insecurities of potentially bad things happening whenever you're doing new things, if you don't know how to solve them. The secrets, low-key confidence that I have is not in my intelligence and my forethought and my clairvoyance, which I don't have, by the way, is the idea that whatever comes, what may, right, both bad and good, they are things to be comprehended and then correct and then improved upon or changed. So both mistakes and correct answers are serendipitously great, right? If it's a mistake, if it's a bad habit, I learned something. I learned something that is bad for me. Like getting this thing is counterintuitive to this thing. So now I can learn how to do that. And in the future, when that happens, it's a non-issue, right? So that is what's missing a lot of times. And that's what I mean here. So when someone sees this, they see one way to do things. And I'm specifically telling you that I have at least 6 ways when I'm not using Wanikani or Bunpro to tell me how to do something. It's extra. This is good. It's extra. And me ranting with my time is also extra. So just thought I'd share a little bit to encourage people, because this likely happens a lot of times to people who adopt a new habit and they didn't realize how when you want a habit, it will be forever. Like the whole idea of having a habit is that you want to keep it. forever. Most people look at Bunpro and Wanikani as a accomplishment, like an achievement. So they would do it, and then it would be like, all right, we'll never use this again. We'll just wash ourselves of it, right? Well, you don't literally have to use this to continue using it. Like, this knowledge that you're acquiring is supposed to be there forever, right? Because if you learned it, you kind of want to retain it. You don't have to literally use Bunpro. That's the main point I'm making. You don't literally need to use your learning source to remind you to practice. When you learn something, output, in my opinion, and I've emphasized this a lot, the nature of output and application is the top 3 contributors to comprehension and retention, not how often you segregate yourself and be forced to practice. All of the forms of output will create retention for you. So yeah, my suspicions were confirmed after using like 1.5 years of multiple SRS. It's not really particularly required. That's why sometimes I can make room for these things. All right. Anyways, that's enough fluffing my session time, and that's it. So until next time, guys. 皆さんまたね。見てくれてありがとう. Right. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna get up, stretch, walk around, grab an extra beverage, and I'll be back for Hanzuhiro. Thank you.